And Denmark is known for one of the leading country in renewable energy. Meanwhile, Indonesia, we are now struggling to develop our renewable energy. Talking about investment, recently some Danish companies, they plan to invest in Indonesia. How do you think it may develop further into a more deeper and stronger investment relationship between Indonesia and Denmark?
Specifically on renewables?
Renewable energy.
Well, if you do look at renewables, I think there is no doubt that Indonesia has an enormous potential. That's something I've been saying to everybody who bothers to listen for the past 2 years. The country has a potential of around 400 gigawatt, and to give you an idea of how much that is, Indonesia's current energy system is around 60 gigawatts. So the potential here is 400, and that comes from solar, wind, biomass, hydro, basically all kinds of renewable energy that you could imagine can easily be developed in Indonesia, and also be developed at a low cost. Yeah. But of course, we are still at the early days of this expansion. I'm pretty sure that we will see Indonesia developing its renewable energy sources significantly in the coming years, simply because in renewable energy worldwide it gets cheaper and cheaper. But for Indonesia to realize this potential of cheap renewable energy, it has to build at scale. And I think that will be the next step.
Okay. But the problem is in Indonesia, it is said that the selling price of the renewable energy is still not competitive compared to fossil fuel. How do you think we should deal with this dilemma?
Yes, I think it's important here to distinguish between what is the price in Indonesia currently and what is the price in the rest of the world. If you take my country as an example, you mentioned that Denmark is one of the countries that are considered leading in the world when it comes to renewable energy. The average generation cost for electricity in Denmark is somewhere between 3 and 4 US cents per kilowatt hour. That is very, very cheap. In Indonesia, the price, for example, here in Java, based on coal, is somewhere between 5 and 6 cents per per kilowatt hour. That's almost twice the price we have in Denmark. And in Denmark, almost all the energy is renewables, mostly wind,
60%.
but also around 60% at the moment. And then we expect that for electricity to increase to almost 100% within just a few years. But the difference, why is it then more expensive here in Indonesia compared to the price in Denmark? And that's what I mentioned before about scale. You need to build Indonesia renewable energy projects at very large scale. For example, the Danish government has recently commissioned 3 new offshore wind parks, each 800 megawatts, so in total 2.4 gigawatt. And of course, if you build wind farms at that scale, the costs come down.
I see.
And it also means for Indonesia that when these projects will be realized of that scale, it will be much more interesting for investors to come in and invest, and also establish production here, which will lead to job growth and employment for Indonesia. So you will develop a green industry. This is what we've seen happen in other countries.
Yeah. Understanding the major differences that we have regarding this issue, what kind of achievements has been progressed by us especially, and under the cooperation with your country in tackling this particular issue called climate change, and then waste management, as well as the clean energy, because as he said and mentioned, making clean energy and renewable energy is something new for us, making it as a new norm in our country, given our context.
We have a very strong cooperation, Denmark and Indonesia, on these matters: environment, energy, waste management. It's been going on for more than 10 years, and of course I'm happy to know that Denmark has invested more than $100 million just in development assistance to Indonesia on these areas. But increasingly it's in the form of peer-to-peer, government-to-government cooperation, where Danish experts are training Indonesian counterparts to help manage the technical aspects of this transition. In some ways, of course, it has taken Denmark quite a few years to achieve what we have, but on the other hand, it's a technical skill, and Indonesia could easily leapfrog the development and realize its potential within just a few years. And we've been working very closely with Indonesian Ministry of Energy and also local counterparts to improve the skills.